Hello, and welcome to this Vita webinar on how to look after your mental health during the coronavirus outbreak. My name's Stephen Wolff, and I'm a senior therapist working within the mental health team in the Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire arm of Vita. I'm going to introduce you to a range of ideas on how to manage during the coronavirus emergency in as healthy a way as possible. We'll be focusing on the following: managing your thoughts, helpful behaviours including self-care, and developing a plan to support your psychological well-being. Firstly, a few important words about keeping safe. It's quite normal to have fleeting thoughts about not wanting to live if you've been feeling or are feeling anxious or depressed. If your situation worsens and you feel that you can't keep yourself safe, contact your GP practice to make an emergency appointment, or out of hours call NHS 111 or call the Samaritans on 116 121. Alternatively, you can email joe@samaritans.org and call 999 if you're worried about your immediate safety. Before we go any further, there are some important points to bear in mind. It's completely understandable to feel concerned or overwhelmed by the news about COVID-19, especially if you're struggling with your mental health or you have a physical illness. You may be anxious about your own health, the health of someone in your family, or what impact the virus will have on your life. At Vita, we're very aware that the spread of COVID-19 is a cause of anxiety and low mood for some people. However, whilst it's inevitable that most of our lives will change in some way for the time being, it's really important to remember that this change is temporary. Whilst we're aware of the symptoms of COVID-19 and their effect on our physical health, our focus in this webinar is on its impact on our mental health and what we can do to help ourselves during the lockdown measures. There are 4 key areas to consider: our emotions, our thoughts, our behaviours, and our physical sensations. First, let's have a look at the impact on our emotions or our moods. During this unique and challenging time we're going through, where our normal routines have been disrupted, it's understandable that we'll experience a range of difficult emotions at different intensities. These emotions aren't just normal, they're to be expected. So we may feel anxious, stressed, panicked, overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, hopeless, helpless, or depressed. Our thoughts at this time of change and uncertainty could include: I'm not in control. I must be prepared for all worst-case scenarios. What if I lose everything? I must make sure that I don't get the coronavirus. What if I get ill? What if my family gets ill? What if I can't cope? These thoughts can be linked to unhelpful thinking habits, which we'll explore on the next few slides. From time to time, we're all prone to unhelpful thinking habits. Some may be very familiar to us, especially if they're our go-to habit. Our unhelpful thinking habits form over the years, but become more exaggerated when we're anxious or stressed, or when our mood is low. The good news is that just like any habit that's working against us rather than for us, our unhelpful thinking styles can be changed. Once we've identified our unhelpful thinking styles and notice when we're using them, they can be challenged. This is done by distancing ourselves from our unhelpful thinking habits so that we can view situations in different, more helpful ways. The first of these common unhelpful thinking habits is catastrophizing or disaster thinking. And this is where we overestimate the chances of disaster and imagine and believe that the worst will happen. For example, what if I lose everything? Emotional reasoning is where we base our interpretation of situations on how we feel emotionally rather than on fact. For example, I feel anxious, therefore something awful is going to happen. When we engage in fortune telling or predicting, we make negative predictions and believe that we know these things will happen in the future, even though there are no definite facts. For example, things won't ever go back to normal. Negative focus is the unhelpful thinking habit of focusing only on the negative aspects of a situation, such as our weaknesses, and ignoring the positives, such as our strengths. For example, we might receive praise on something we've done well, but stay focused on earlier mistakes. When we assume that something that is difficult to tolerate is unbearable and intolerable, This is called low frustration tolerance. We magnify how bad the situation is, and we minimize our ability to cope with it. Example being, this is too much for me, I can't cope. Demands is the unhelpful thinking habit of living by rigid rules and unrealistic expectations, and frequently using should, must, ought, and can't statements, which lead to anxiety, disappointment, depression, anger, and guilt. For example, I must be prepared for all worst-case scenarios. Moving on to behaviours, it makes sense that our actions will be affected when we're experiencing difficult emotions and thoughts. Whilst these behaviours are understandable responses to the challenges we're going through, they can lead to us feeling more anxious, stressed, and low. We might frequently seek reassurance from others, or we might procrastinate, for example, put off enjoyable activities and routine or necessary tasks. We might control, for example, through panic buying, and we saw a lot of this at the start of the COVID-19 emergency. We might also check, so for example, check frequently for signs of illness, or check the news several times a day. Or we may bring around change, for example, to our routine. The fourth area to consider is how difficult emotions and thoughts we experience and the unhelpful behaviours we engage in affect how we feel physically. For example, we may experience our mind racing, sleep problems, physical tension, aches and pains, including headaches, nausea or the sensation of butterflies in the stomach, or our immune system can become suppressed, and this is something that happens when we're in a state of stress. Bringing the four areas we've been considering together, the vicious cycle or problem diagram shows the strong connection between our emotions, thoughts, behaviours, and physical sensations, and how these all influence one another to keep the problem going. A blank vicious cycle diagram is shown on the next slide. When you're creating your own vicious cycle after this webinar, you might find it helpful to start by noting down your emotions or moods, which can usually be described as single words. For example, anxious, panicky, sad, frustrated. Then move on to your thoughts. What goes through your mind when you feel those emotions you've already written down? Next, think about how your emotions and your thoughts affect your behaviours. What do you do when you're in response to the emotions and the thoughts you've already identified? Finally, note down any physical sensations you experience which link to the emotions, thoughts, and behaviours that you've already identified. We'll move on now to how to tackle your worries about coronavirus in 3 steps. The first strategy is to identify whether your worry is either a current worry, and that's a worry that's focused on a practical problem that's affecting you right now. So this type of worry is about things you can do something about by finding a solution. For example, a current worry might be, I'm having to use my credit card to buy supplies while I'm off work and I'm struggling to afford the interest fees. Or consider if your worry is a hypothetical worry, and that's a worry that's focused on something that hasn't yet happened, but may happen. This type of worry can involve worst-case scenario thinking or catastrophizing. An example is, what if more people die from the coronavirus than recover? The second strategy is to use problem solving for your current worries. To apply problem solving, first of all, choose the current worry you want to problem solve. For example, I'm having to use my credit card to buy supplies while I'm off work, and I'm struggling to afford the interest fees. Take the current worry and turn it into a solution-focused statement. For example, I need to speak to someone as soon as possible about help with my finances. Then think of as many possible solutions as you can to the problem and write them down. Write down the strengths and weaknesses of each solution you've identified. Then choose which solution that works best for you and plan how you'll put it into practice. Finally, put your problem solving into action and review how it went afterwards. It's really important to note that problem solving isn't helpful for hypothetical worry. The third strategy is to use worry time to deliberately postpone your hypothetical worries. To apply worry time, first of all, choose a time when you're not going to be doing something else and when you're not likely to be distracted by others. Then choose how long your worry time will be for. For example, 7 o'clock in the evening for 25 minutes. Outside of your chosen worry time, write down any hypothetical worries each day, knowing that you can worry about them as much as you like during your chosen worry time. You can say to yourself, I'm not going to worry about this now, I'll worry about this later. Then choose what you can focus your attention on, something that's going on in the here and now and not in the future. Focusing on things in the present that you can see, hear, touch, taste, and smell will really help with this. So next to each of your hypothetical worries, write down what it is that you'll be focusing your attention on. Then, when you get to your chosen worry time, choose one hypothetical worry from your list to start with. For each hypothetical worry, ask yourself a series of questions. Has the hypothetical worry happened? And if so, how did I deal with it? Now that I've come back to this hypothetical worry, is it still a problem? If not, draw a line through that worry and let it go. What does it feel like to worry about these concerns as much as I want to during my worry time? Did I need as much time as I thought I would need for my worry time? So once you've got to the end of your chosen worry time, it's really important to stop the worry process. Discard your worry list to help to let them go. Here are some other strategies to help you to manage your worries about COVID-19. Try to focus on things that are positive in your life. This could include focusing on positive stories and images of local people who have experienced the coronavirus and have recovered, or who have supported a loved one through recovery and are willing to share their experience. Try to remember that medical, scientific, and public health experts are working hard to contain the virus. Remember too that the current change to our life routine is only temporary. Let's start to consider a number of helpful behaviours that you can engage in while you're isolated. The first is to set daily goals to provide purpose and a sense of achievement. This may include working through that list of things you keep meaning to do but never get round to. Stop checking. If you're excessively worried about the coronavirus, you may find yourself checking, for example, looking for signs of illness, which means you're likely to find unfamiliar physical sensations that are harmless but make you feel anxious. Normal physical changes and sensations pass in time, so if, for example, you feel your chest tighten, shift your focus of attention onto pleasurable activities and adopt watchful waiting in the meantime, rather than constantly monitoring and focusing on physical sensations, which just intensifies them. Constant monitoring of news updates and social media posts about the COVID-19 outbreak can intensify feelings of worry and distress. So in order to manage this, consider turning off automatic notifications and taking a break from the news. Set boundaries to how much news you read, watch, or listen to, and this will enable you to focus on your life and the actions over which you have control, instead of wondering, what if? There are practical things you can do if you feel scared by the coronavirus. You may see social media stories or posts that are anxiety-provoking. False reports do nothing but feed anxiety, as it can be very hard to know whether or not social media posts are true, so try not to rely on updates from there. To avoid the fear and panic that this information may cause, access reliable sources of information to help you to stay on top of what's happening. The UK government website provides the most up-to-date and reliable information. The NHS website is also useful if you need reliable information and advice about the coronavirus. Consider ways of keeping in touch remotely with your family, friends, colleagues, and others to help you and them to feel more connected and supported. So here are some examples: text messaging, phone, social media, playing an online game together, video chat, and services such as Age UK and Silverline, who have people to talk to. Committing to self-care is really important when it comes to helping our emotional well-being. Self-care is about prioritizing looking after yourself and focusing on the things that you can control, such as your diet and eating frequency, getting enough sleep, exercising, engaging in relaxation techniques, doing enjoyable activities, maintaining or creating a daily routine that supports your well-being. When it comes to diet, changing our routine or being less active than we usually are may affect our appetite. So ensure that you eat regularly, little and often or 3 square meals a day, to support your immune system, keep your blood sugar stable, and help your mood and energy levels. Similarly, changing our routine may also affect when we drink or what we drink. So make sure that you stay hydrated by drinking water regularly. This is really important for both your mental health and your physical health. Sleep's another key area. If uncertainty and changes to daily life are affecting your sleep, you can bring about improvements in a number of ways. So firstly, aim to go to bed and get up at the same time each day, 7 days a week. In the wind down time before bed, avoid using your phone, tablet, computer, or TV for an hour before bedtime. These devices have backlit screens which delay your body's internal clock and suppress the release of melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. Try to get some natural sunlight through exercise outdoors or by opening your curtains and windows. Getting some natural sunlight helps to regulate your body clock, which can help you sleep better. Staying active and engaging in exercise helps to combat stress, increases energy levels and alertness, improves sleep quality, and can help to improve your mood if you're feeling low. Here are some ideas for staying active at home: Tai Chi, yoga, dancing, going up and down the stairs, and chair exercises. Before I introduce relaxation techniques, it's helpful to understand how our body can respond when we feel anxious or stressed, our body's natural response to feeling threatened. This is the alarm system which helps us to deal with danger. When triggered, adrenaline flows through our body, and breathing rate, blood pressure, and heart rate increase, and we can experience other unpleasant physical responses, such as muscle tension, sweating, and racing thoughts. A lot of the time, however, we don't need these survival responses. Relaxation helps to decrease the adrenaline response and can come from activities such as talking to a friend, reading, swimming, meditation, listening to music, doing something creative, writing down how you feel in a journal, or watching a favorite film or TV program. Self-soothing is one of a number of formal relaxation techniques, and you can create a self-soothing box by gathering a range of things that will appeal to your 5 senses. Here are some examples. For sight, you could choose colors, patterns, flowers, art, photographs, looking at nostalgic objects. For hearing, you could focus your attention on playlists of relaxing music, listening to a ticking clock, listening to sounds in the environment, for example, birdsong or trees blowing in the wind. For your sense of touch, you could focus on things such as Play-Doh, fidget cubes or spinners, stress balls, textures, feeling your feet in contact with the ground, feeling your body in contact with the chair. Some ideas to appeal to your sense of taste include chocolate, mints, fruit, and fruit juices. And lastly, for your sense of smell, you could focus your attention on the smell of essential oils, scented candles, air freshener, flowers, food, and drink. Abdominal breathing is the foundation for relaxation of breathing techniques. Our out-breath releases tension in the chest muscles, allowing all of our muscles to release tension more easily. Breathing is far more effective when we use our diaphragms located just below our lungs, rather than our chest muscles. To practice this technique, sit comfortably in a chair and place one hand on your abdomen, that's between your lower ribs and your navel, and one hand on your chest. Take 2 or 3 deep breaths and notice which hand moves first and which hand moves the most. Practice so it's the lower hand on your abdomen that moves rather than the one on your chest. People often think that their tummy goes in when they breathe in, but the reverse should be the case. You can use abdominal breathing when standing, sitting, or lying down. When you're trying this for the first time and getting used to it, you'll find it easy to do if you're lying down. Rectangular breathing is another really helpful relaxation of breathing technique. You can either visualize a rectangle in your mind's eye or look at a rectangle, such as a door, a window, a book, or a sheet of paper, to track its shape. Breathe in along the shorter side of the rectangle to a count of 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Pause at the corner of the rectangle and hold to a count of 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Then breathe out along the longer side of the rectangle to a slower count of 4. Breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Then pause at the corner, hold, 2, 3, 4, and continue with the in-breath and out-breath counts for 4 minutes, pausing at each corner. If you're in a state of high stress or anxiety, you may find yourself speeding up when you use this technique. So it can be helpful to introduce a word between each count. For example, breathe in, relax, 2, relax, 3, relax, 4, relax. Progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR, is another effective technique. When we're stressed or anxious, we often find that our muscles tense. This is part of the fight, flight, freeze response. Our body's preparing to respond to a potentially dangerous situation. We experience the same response even when the situation is not actually dangerous, but we think it is. Signs of muscle tension include tightness in the jaw, neck, shoulders, and back, as well as headaches. PMR involves tightening and relaxing all the different muscle groups in your body, one at a time. When you tense a muscle, it becomes hard and tightens around the bone. When you relax a muscle, it loosens, creating a sensation of warm heaviness. I've added a link on this slide to a YouTube video on progressive muscle relaxation. Engaging in some simple, enjoyable activities at home is another key part of self-care, which can improve your mood and your energy level. This is particularly important if your mood is low. It's also important to be aware that if you're feeling low right now, you may not experience the same level of pleasure doing an enjoyable activity as when you weren't feeling low. Keep going and you'll find that your mood will begin to lift. I'll share some ideas for enjoyable activities that you can try at home on the next slide. So here we have some examples of enjoyable home-based activities: sketching, painting, arts and crafts, talking on the phone or having a video call, gardening, listening to a radio show or podcast, researching a topic of interest or learning a new language, doing crossword puzzles, walking or jogging, bird watching or feeding the birds, cuddling or playing with a pet, sitting in the garden or spending time in nature, baking, or enjoying the smell of scented candles, oils, or incense. There are some other strategies to consider to help you to manage your worries about COVID-19. Wherever you may be when you're isolated, it's important that you continue to stay connected with others and talk to people you trust, such as a friend or a family member. They may be in the same situation and can help you navigate anything you're going through. Keep acknowledging how you're feeling and do this regularly. It's good for you to talk about this where possible. Try to avoid turning to stimulants like cigarettes or alcohol, which can leave you feeling worse. If you need extra support, think about who you can turn to. This could be someone you know or a helpline that can talk to you about how you're feeling. Set aside time each day to reflect on what went well. Recognize your successes and the things you're grateful for every day, no matter how small they may be. Keep a daily gratitude journal in which you could write down 2 or 3 of these things every night before you go to bed. Practice mindfulness techniques which can help you to focus on the present instead of dwelling on unhelpful thoughts. It's important, however, to be aware that mindfulness techniques may not be helpful for those experiencing more severe depression. Many apps teach simple forms of meditation, such as Headspace or Calm. There are a number of things you can do to help to support and manage your daily routine. Take breaks throughout the day for enjoyable activities and connecting with others. Maintain your routine to support a sense of normality. Adding calming activities such as relaxation, Tai Chi or meditation into your day is helpful, but try to keep to your daily schedule as much as possible. Make sure that you continue to take your prescription medication unless advised otherwise by your GP. If you're worried about getting your prescription, call the pharmacy from which you collect your medication or call your GP so that arrangements can be made to get your prescription delivered or picked up by someone else. The final self-care strategy is creating a daily routine plan. Creating a plan for your daily routine will help you to gain an overview of how you're using your time. Notice any activities you may currently be doing which lead to unhelpful emotions, thinking, and physical sensations. Identify activities which encourage positive emotions, thoughts, and physical sensations. Recognize how your mood is affected by your activities. Identify what can be changed on the diary or planned into the diary to help you to feel better. So here we have an example of a daily routine plan. You'll notice that each day of the week is divided into 3 phases: morning, afternoon, and evening. The example shows a blend of activities across the week, which includes self-care activities, enjoyable activities, work commitments, household tasks, and different ways of connecting remotely with others. I've included a blank template on the next slide for you to create your own daily routine plan after you've completed this webinar. Earlier in this webinar, we looked at this vicious cycle diagram, which showed us how our emotions, thoughts, behaviors, and physical sensations all influence one another and keep our problem going. Now that we've covered a range of helpful interventions, we can create solutions to our problem, the flip side of the vicious cycle, using the well-being diagram, which we'll look at on the next slide. The well-being cycle brings together all of the helpful strategies we've covered, providing a solution to the problematic emotions, thoughts, behaviors, and physical responses we captured on the vicious cycle diagram. A blank well-being cycle diagram is shown on the next slide. So we've looked at managing your worries about COVID-19, and we've explored a range of helpful behaviors, including self-care. When it comes to creating your own well-being cycle, you may find it helpful to start by identifying helpful behaviors that you've taken from this webinar. Then note down the positive effect of those helpful behaviors on your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical sensations. I recommend setting time aside to do this after you've completed this webinar. Following this webinar, if you'd like further information or you'd like to access support for anxiety, low mood, or managing long-term health conditions, please visit www.vitahealthgroup.co.uk. You can self-refer via our website to our IAP services in Basildon and Brentford, Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire, Calderdale, Derby and Derbyshire, and Kent and Medway. Here also is a list of other helpful sources of support. Before we come to the end of this webinar, I'd like to say thank you for joining me today and for your time. I hope you found it informative and that you're taking away some helpful strategies for managing your mental well-being during this challenging time. I hope too that you stay safe and well. Goodbye.